Take two. Hi, I'm James. And this is breath awareness practice or mindfulness meditation or conscious awareness practice or presence practice or all of the above and all of the above. But it basically begins with you bringing awareness to the breath. So let's just do that wherever you are. You could just see my shoulders moving a little when I'm breathing. And for right now, I'm noticing that my breath is predominantly in my chest body as opposed to my abdominal body. So just bringing the awareness to that, where you feel the breath in the body. Maybe it's subtle that you don't feel it, and that's okay too. Just bringing the awareness to the feeling not being there of the breath just yet. Once you establish where that is, let that be the focus of your awareness. So where the breath is showing up for you presently. So each time the thinking mind or the thoughts or the mind comes to thinking, what am I doing here? This is silly. I'm just paying attention to my chest or my belly. Acknowledge the thinking and come right back to the breath. And that's the practice. So we first begin by bringing the awareness to where the breath is, where we're feeling the breath, and we concentrate that awareness there. So for me, just over the last few rounds of breath of speaking this, my breath has moved down into my abdomen, into my belly, into the belly breath, which is really what we're looking for. Bringing the breath down into the belly helps us to address or access the parasympathetic nervous system, so the rest and digest. When we're breathing up into the upper body, into the chest, it's sympathetic or fight or flight. Just going through sports in school, a lot of what we were taught was to breathe up. Keep the breath up when you're running or when you're playing ball or whatever the activity was. So here, when we're learning to meditate and to find a meditative practice in the breath, we want to be able to bring it down to the abdomen, down to the belly. And that might just happen naturally by the practice of awareness. So, just our systems naturally might be breathing in their own way into the chest body or into the fight or flight, because that's where we activate. That's where we are in driving, in interacting with business, and all of those things that we do in life really show up with the breath or or the scarcity of breath. Uh, and we'll work on that too. But just over the course of finding the awareness of where the breath is in the body, changing the pattern of thoughts, the body will start to do the work for you or for itself, really. Um, the calming nature of taking the thinking mind, this chattering, we've got to do this, we've got to do that, we're sitting here at the computer, we should be, whatever the mind is thinking, it's always going to be doing that. We can't change that, but we can change how we relate to it. And that's where we use the breath. And the breath comes in all the time. We always have breath. So, and it changes, and we can notice the changes in our activity and the changes in our breath. When we're excited, how our breath shortens, and when we're relaxed, how the breath is longer and deeper. Two perfect examples of fight or flight or rest and digest. So, hopefully through all of that, you've been paying attention to your breath. Okay. We can add to the practice by adding maybe a word to what's happening. Inhaling, exhaling, or rising and falling, or rising and settling. Pick words that work for you. Inspiration, expiration, getting rid of the stale breath. So another little thing we could tag on to the breath awareness is adding this word form. Inhaling, exhaling, rising, falling, expanding, contracting, whichever seems to come to you. We all work different lifestyles, different jobs, so we have different words for things. Another part of the awareness practice we can add to these two little things is when the mind comes to, I'm not sure if you can hear the birds and the wind chimes behind me, but if in this practice the thinking mind goes to that, acknowledge those thoughts, acknowledge the wind chimes or the birds, and then come back to the breath. So really what we're working on is this focused awareness, right? And we have a couple of different tools to utilize to bring us back to this breath awareness. That's the mindfulness training. And we use the breath because the breath is always with us. We always have the breath. And we don't always have the mindset to remember to do that. That's where practice is. So that's where we set up things that my teacher calls micro practices. So we set up little places that are regular occurrences for us in our day. When the phone rings, uh, before you open a door or cross through a doorway, or entering and exiting your vehicle. These are all little moments that we do all the time, constantly in the day. Some of us, if you're a delivery person, hundreds of times a day. Imagine stopping once, standing on both feet, softening the body, bringing your awareness to the breath, inhaling or inspiring, and then exhaling, and then motivating through the doorway or opening the car door, or then answering the phone. These are places that we can tie in this little meditation practice. So we'll spend, 10 minutes here just talking about the techniques, and then we can spend 10 minutes in the technique. And then if we implement these little micro practices once a day or 10 times a day over the course of some time, they will start happening on their own. Um, I live in Tucson now, but I'm a New York City driver. So I had that New York City mentality of getting around the traffic. Moving to Tucson was a big difference for me. And that became my mindfulness practice. It's like, oh, there's no rush. I am not, I don't have a 2-hour commute to go 10 miles. It takes me 10 minutes to go 10 miles. So there are these different places, places where we don't have control of something is a good place to practice. Again, back to driving, because that was a big part of my practice. Why aren't they using their blinker? I would trouble me, and they would turn, and then I would be driving past them, and I'd still be in this mindset of, why can't they use their blinker? It's so easy to just reach over and, but I don't know what they're thinking. But whatever they were doing and whatever they did is still with me. And that's a problem, because now I'm taking on something that I don't really need to have. Okay, and we come into this a lot in our day because there's so much happening. So just again, finding the breath. Maybe even settling and softening the face when that happens. Maybe picking something to do with your hands when that happens. Clasp together and putting in your palms, or clasp together and in your lap. or just your hands at your knees, or palms up at the knees. Have little things that you can tie together, and when stress or anxiety or a memory comes up of something that's stressful, we can acknowledge those thoughts, because we can't stop them from happening, right? We have to acknowledge that these are things that are in our thought process, but we don't have to be attached to that thinking, especially when it's happening a lot. I deal with chronic pain, so pain is a big practice for me. Um, I used to be angry when the pain would be present or in flare-up mode, and now I use it as a practice. When I'm in pain, I take a moment to set myself, either sit up on my sit bones or stand on both feet, find a foundation for myself, and take a breath, and then acknowledge. The brain immediately, when I have pain, my brain goes, "We're in pain," and then my first question is, well, where's the breath? Then my second question is, well, where's the pain? Like, is it possible that my whole body, my whole body, my whole being is in pain? Or is it really just one spot? So, and that's another meditation we could work on another time, um, you know, sitting with the pain. Because everything's an education for us. And if we look at it in this way, in this mindful manner, not necessarily good or bad or positive or negative or whatever the thing is just that this is this and this is this, and this is where we are in between the two, right? And when we get pulled towards one side and one side gets a little heavier, we have to recognize that there's still the other side, and we can find some place in between. And by bringing the focus to the breath and bringing the breath down into the body, that's the key to the threshold of crossing over into these next places where we can be mindful in the next things we do. Peace.